The international dragon boat races are held despite the challenging weather. But the bad weather has forced tonight's fireworks display to be cancelled. And high-speed sleeper trains between Beijing, Shanghai and Hong Kong begin service. Good evening and welcome to TVB News. The Hong Kong International Dragon Boat Races is held along Victoria Harbour off the Tsim Sha Tsui East Promenade today. Some 4,000 competitors are taking part in the two-day event. Some contestants and spectators said even the heavy downpours did not dampen the fun and atmosphere of the race.
Paddle hard and make a splash amid the resounding drum beats and cheers. Competitors giving it their all, hoping to win the Dragon Boat Race. Though it's a few days after the traditional Dragon Boat Festival, the annual Hong Kong International Dragon Boat Races continue the adrenaline-pumping excitement of the Chinese tradition along the Tsim Sha Tsui harbourfront.
Tigers! 1, 2, 3,
More than 170 teams from 12 countries and regions contesting in 17 races, with a higher number of athletes than last year. They include first-timers from Shunde, Guangdong. This racer said the bigger waves here made it even more exciting.
I think it's very great, very lively. I think we do not have such big international competitions back in Singapore. So I think it's a good experience for this team as well.
Just to participate, just for the fun, yes, to be here in this beautiful harbour.
While the observatory issued the amber rainstorm warning signal today, and some races have been postponed, many spectators enjoyed the atmosphere.
Everybody's happy, so the weather is, I think, okay, it's no problem. We have the same weather in the Netherlands. It's a lot of raining.
Something that we've never seen before because they don't do dragon boat racing in the United States. And I learned a little bit about the history and it's quite interesting.
This local contestant said they have been training in Cheung Kwan O, sometimes amid heavy downpours, so they are experienced in paddling in the rain.
There were originally parasols opened up along the waterfront spectator area so people can enjoy the race without worrying too much about the drizzle. But with stronger winds now, organizers have to fold them back up for safety's sake.
The two-day sporting event this year includes a new PRC 75th anniversary celebration trophy.
The fireworks display originally set at Victoria Harbour tonight has been cancelled as a result of the poor weather. Meanwhile, the observatory issued the amber rainstorm warning signal on 3 occasions today. Areas such as Tai Po, the North District and Tsuen Wan recorded rainfall of over 100 millimeters over the course of the afternoon. Meanwhile, the special announcement on flooding in the northern New Territories remains in effect. Timothy Lee reports.
Scenes of grey skies and fog could be seen in Pat Hung and the New Territories this afternoon. Heavy rainfall turned nearby nullahs into raging torrents as large puddles of water were formed across Kam Sheung Road. In Tai Po, water levels sharply rose in Wun Yu Village. While water gushed from the hill flooding parts of Kam Sheung Village. Many residents said they were afraid to leave their homes. Elsewhere, the rainwater flooded this parking lot in a housing estate on Feng Yu Road. The observatory issued its first amber rainstorm warning signal at 6 this morning, before cancelling it 2 hours later. The second warning signal was issued at 12:55 p.m. and was dropped 3.5 hours later, while the third was issued at 5:50 p.m. Throughout the afternoon, several areas recorded rainfall of over 30 millimeters, with the figure reaching above 100 millimeters in Tai Po, the North District, and Tsuen Wan. Meanwhile, Changsha recorded winds traveling at 80 kilometers per hour. Weather authorities forecast that the city will continue to experience heavy rainstorms over the weekend. The observatory noted the weather conditions are caused by the southwest monsoon affecting the Guangdong coast. The weather is expected to improve by Monday, with the temperature on that day set to reach a maximum of 33 degrees. Meanwhile, there were reports of trees falling across Hong Kong Island. They include two 10-meter-tall trees tumbling at around 8 a.m. on Sun Sing Street in Shao Kei Wan, and a 13-meter-tall tree having fallen over on May Road in mid-levels. No one was injured. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
The high-speed sleeper trains operating between Beijing, Shanghai, and Hong Kong began service today. The first sleeper train departed from West Kowloon Station at 6:24 p.m. to Beijing Xi or Beijing West. The first sleeper train to Shanghai, Hongqiao, is scheduled to depart at 7:49 p.m. Tickets cost around $900 to $1,800. The journey time to Beijing takes around 12.5 hours. It takes around 11 hours to reach Shanghai. Passengers riding the train's maiden journey from Hong Kong include this group of interns. One of them said she had never had such a long journey on the high-speed rail, and she hopes to talk and enjoy her time with her classmates during the overnight ride. Another passenger said the experience should be more comfortable than that on the through trains in the past. The overnight trains run from Friday to Monday. Secretary for Transport and Logistics Lam Sai-hung said the government will try to increase the frequency of the trains once there is a higher demand. Residents can apply for the first batch of newly launched light public housing units located on Yau Park Road in Yuen Long and Choi Hing Road in Yau Tau Kok, starting on the 24th of this month. Secretary for Housing Winnie Ho said she is confident residents can move into public rental housing after spending 2 to 3 years in light public housing units. Timothy Lee tells us more.
Around 85,000 eligible applicants for the 4,400 units of new light public housing will start receiving application forms next week. Secretary for Housing Winnie Ho stressed the light public housing measure aims to help those living in poor conditions, adding that she hopes they can move into public rental housing after spending 2 to 3 years in the temporary units. Ho emphasized the waiting time for traditional rental public housing has decreased because the supply of such housing is on the rise. The light public housing units will be allocated according to a point system, with priority given to families with elderly members and children. But as of now, more than 70% of such units are designed for 1 to 2 residents. The Secretary for Housing said the units were designed according to research conducted by authorities, stressing that some 70% of subdivided flat households consist of just 1 or 2 people. On the problem of tenancy abuse of public housing, Ho said the government has achieved progress in its effort to quell such cases. She said in excess of 19,000 units out of the more than 30,000 that could be allocated this year are recovered units. Authorities have also received 91% of the second round of income and asset declarations from public housing tenants. Ho stressed the government will continue to explore ways to tackle the city's public housing abuse problem. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
Premier Li Qiang arrived in Australia today after his New Zealand visit. He is expected to engage in various trade and political negotiations with Australian leaders. Danny Zhou reports.
Li landed in an airport in Adelaide today and was greeted by Australian Foreign Minister Penny Wong and the State Premier of South Australia on the tarmac. This is the Premier's start of his 4-day visit to Australia. He said a more mature, stable and fruitful China-Australian comprehensive strategic partnership is a common asset for both countries, adding that it should be based on mutual respect and cooperation. Li is set to visit the Adelaide Zoo tomorrow. It is home to the only pandas in the Southern Hemisphere, Wang Wang and Fu Ni. And a potential extension of the panda loan agreement between the two countries will be discussed. This follows Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese's pro-panda declaration during his visit to China in November last year. On Monday, Premier Li will preside over the annual leaders' meeting in Canberra with Albanese to exchange views on bilateral, regional and international issues. He will also visit a Chinese-controlled lithium processing plant in the state of Western Australia. Also high on the agenda are climate change issues, a new visa scheme, partnership in new energy, a potential lifting of China's ban on Australian lobsters, as well as China's accession to the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement of Trans-Pacific Partnership Trade Pact. Danny Zhou, TVB News.
And still ahead, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky rejects Russia's peace plan. Pope Francis joins world leaders in the G7 summit. And Britain's Princess Catherine returns. Welcome back. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has rejected Vladimir Putin's solution for peace. On Thursday, Putin said he would call an immediate ceasefire if Ukraine withdrew its forces from areas captured by Moscow during the war and renounced plans to join NATO. Naswi Karim reports.
Months after Russia invaded Ukraine in February 2022, Moscow annexed the captured eastern regions of Donetsk, Luhansk, Zaporizhia and Kherson. Putin said at the time that the four provinces are Russian forever, even as Ukrainian troops continue their battle to retake lost territory. The Russian leader on Thursday told a foreign ministry meeting that Ukraine could stop the war if they withdrew their forces from the four regions. In addition, he wants Kiev to abandon its ambitions of joining NATO, the 32-nation military alliance that includes the United States and many European countries. Putin said his proposal is aimed at a final resolution of the conflict rather than freezing it, and stressed that the Kremlin is ready to start negotiations without delay. His comments come as Switzerland prepares to host a peace summit to support Ukraine, while Zelensky was at the G7 meeting in Italy to sign a security agreement with the US President Joe Biden. However, Putin's offer has been rejected by Kiev, which wants the security that NATO provides, and has demanded that Russia withdraw its troops from all of its territory. Zelensky, in an interview on the sidelines of the G7 meeting, said Putin's terms remind him of Hitler before World War II. He said Putin was being ultimative and does not differ from the ultimatums that were made by others in the past. Zelensky said, "This is a renaissance of Nazism, and this Nazism is Russian." He said it's the same message Hitler gave when the Nazi leader offered to end his military build-up if he could have parts of the former Czechoslovakia. Zelensky said after that he went into Poland. Nazwi Karim, TVB News.
At the G7 meeting in Italy, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said the decision to continue backing Ukraine should serve as a warning to Russian President Vladimir Putin. The group also expressed concern about China's so-called overcapacity in electric vehicles. Naswi Karim again.
With a day or more of the three-day Group of Seven meeting dedicated to backing Ukraine, leaders of the world's leading industrial countries are hoping to send a strong message to Russian President Vladimir Putin. Group members have agreed to provide a $50 billion loan to Ukraine, funded mostly by the United States and also using interest and income generated from $260 billion worth of frozen Russian assets. This in addition to security agreements Ukraine signed with the US and Japan, with other European countries willing to offer additional funding. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said Russian money is effectively being used against Russia.
It is a strong signal that we are sending to Ukraine, that we will support Ukraine in its fight for freedom for as long as it takes. It is also a strong signal to Putin that Putin cannot outlast us. And the message is also that it's not the European taxpayers that are paying for the damage that Putin is causing with his war of aggression, but it is Putin. Because it is the windfall profits from the immobilized assets in Europe that are serving this 50 billion loan for Ukraine.
On Friday, the G7 leaders switched their attention to other matters, such as China, with whom they hope to establish a constructive and stable relationship. They highlighted the so-called overcapacity of China-made electric vehicles and practices that lead to global spillovers and market distortions. The G7 also mentioned Hong Kong, saying Article 23 had suppressed the SAR's autonomy. On Taiwan, the group reiterated their one China policy, adding they hope issues can be resolved peacefully. Beijing had long noted the G7 interferes with China's domestic affairs and disregards facts. The China Media Group, in a commentary on Thursday, said the European Union should think twice before imposing tariffs on Chinese-made EVs, saying China has the trade tools to effectively counteract EU measures. It says industry insiders suggest that China is internally pressing forward with moves to raise provisional tariffs on large displacement engines that could affect major European car brands such as BMW and Mercedes-Benz. Nazri Karim, TVB News.
Pope Francis became the first pope to speak to the world leaders at the G7 summit. David Garrett has more.
At the invitation of host Italian Premier Giorgia Meloni, Pope Francis at the G7. In the sunshine on the shores of the Adriatic near a golf resort, His Holiness used a cart to get around spreading his message. Once arriving at the hall, the pontiff was taken in his wheelchair around the table. He was greeted by British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak. He received a warm embrace from Narendra Modi, who has just begun a third term as India's PM. Other world leaders were almost queuing up. Embattled French President Emmanuel Macron was one, in a week in which he's called snap elections for next month, following setbacks in the EU parliamentary elections. Francis is the first pope to attend the G7, the meeting of leading industrial nations, taking place this year in southern Italy, not far from Rome.
God bless you.
Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky was another invited to meet with the religious leader. The Pope recently urged Ukraine to try to seal a ceasefire with Russia. He spoke with Zelensky on the day Vladimir Putin laid out Russian terms for peace. Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada, was another to speak with the head of the Roman Catholic Church. The Pope was keen to send a strong message. As the first in history to speak at the G7, the 87-year-old addressed a modern topic, artificial intelligence. Francis said wealthy countries must take the lead in making AI human-centric.
In manera independente.
He said it is crucial that big decisions and relationships are made and maintained by people and not machines. The pontiff said when we are confronted with dramatic and urgent choices, decisions must be left to a person. Human dignity depends on it. He warned politicians in the room that they will be blamed if things go wrong as he finished his message. The onus is on politics to create conditions for good, fruitful AI use.
Grazie.
Pope Francis received a personal thank you from US President Biden.
You had such an impression on my family when my son died. And you came in and talked to us about it and filled up your time.
The pair discussed the wars in Ukraine and Gaza. The Pope has frequently called for more humanitarian assistance for the Palestinians. Proceedings finished with a G7 group photo with the Pope standing at the centre of a historic day. David Garrett, TVB News.
It was happy 78th birthday to Donald Trump as the former and possibly the next president of the United States partied in Florida. He took to the stage to cheers from supporters who joined in as fans sang happy birthday. Trump will go up against Joe Biden to try to regain the presidency in November. The current president is 3 years older than Trump. Polls have revealed age and mental capacity could be a factor when Americans vote. This spotlight gave Trump the chance to portray himself as the younger and more dynamic prospect.
There's nowhere else I'd rather be on my birthday. It's Flag Day, my birthday, than right here with thousands of proud American patriots from the great state of Florida. It's so sad to watch. Our country is being destroyed by incompetent people, by grossly incompetent leadership, probably the dumbest leadership in the world. In fact, I think we should have, and I've called it, all presidents should have aptitude tests, IQ tests, or cognitive tests.
Britain's Princess of Wales has made her first public appearance since her cancer diagnosis in today's ceremonial birthday parade for King Charles. Danny Zhou has the story.
Princess Catherine arrived at Buckingham Palace on Saturday and attended the royal Trooping the Colour ceremony with her children in London. The parade is a traditional military pomp in celebration of the monarch's official birthday. This is her first public appearance after going through a 7-month battle with an unspecified form of cancer. The palace issued a new photo of Princess Catherine dressed in a blazer and jeans leaning on a tree. It was taken in Windsor earlier this week. The 42-year-old princess said in a statement that she is making good progress. She said a chemotherapy is ongoing and will be for a few more months, and she expected to attend a few public engagements this summer. The message marks an auspicious sign for royal fans, but still, it is far from her returning to full-time public duties. A royal commentator said that Princess Catherine has been more frank about cancer treatment effect than any other royal family members, adding that a historic comeback shows the family are sticking together amid difficult times.
I think the King will show and has shown by inviting Catherine along that he is absolutely delighted to share the limelight with his beloved daughter-in-law and a future Queen. And I think it does show that, you know, they've been pretty down and out in the last few months, the royal family, but they're still there, they're still fighting, and they're coming back to public life as and when they can.
Danny Zhou, TVB News.
And that's the news. Thank you for watching.